The Girl Who Waited for the Sea. The air in Wellington, 1910, carried the tang of salt and coal smoke. On the dramatic cliffs overlooking the Cook Strait, the old world and the new often collided. It was there that Aroha, a Maori weaver whose hands understood the flax and the sea breeze better than any tongue, met Thomas, an English sailor with the transient look of a man built for the horizon. Their courtship was swift, measured only by the time Thomas's ship was docked for repairs. He was all broad shoulders and borrowed ambition, speaking of faraway ports and a life of constant motion. Aroha was his anchor, teaching him the names of the native plants and the patterns woven into the fabric of the land. They knew their time was short, a brief interlude between the ship's departure and the relentless beat of the waves. On the night his ship was ready, Thomas held her close, his promise delivered beneath the southern stars. "I will return, Aroha," he said, "when the tides have turned and my duty is done. You wait for me here." He sailed at dawn, leaving a raw, open space in the coastal morning. Aroha did not weep. Instead, she turned her grief and her devotion into a ritual. Every single day, as the sun dipped behind the western hills and the sky bled purple and orange into the gray Tasman Sea, she walked to the highest, windiest point of the cliffs. There, with her back to the land and her gaze fixed on the endless churning sea, she sat. Her hands never rested. From raw, local flax and the imported, vibrant wool traded at the port, she began to weave. She chose colors of the deep ocean, navy, slate gray, and flashes of emerald green moss. She wove a shawl, massive and intricate, a tapestry of her solitude. It grew slowly, stitch by stitch, an act of patient, defiant hope. The finished garment was a masterpiece, long enough to cover her completely, its hem trailing behind her like the foam of a receding wave as she sat, an earthly extension of the water he sailed upon. Years became decades. The tides changed countless times, but Thomas never returned. Aroha became an institution on the cliffs, the quiet woman whose shawl grew older and softer than the stone she sat upon. She grew old, passed her weaving knowledge to her family, and finally her great love dissolved back into the land. The shawl remained carefully stored, an artifact of an ancestral longing. 1 century later, in the same windy spot in Wellington, Aroha's granddaughter, also a weaver named Mir, stood gazing at the sea. She was wrapped tightly in the heavy, irreplaceable shawl, now the color of old, deep water, its texture carrying the accumulated memory of 1,000 sunsets. As Mir watched the foam line where the land surrendered to the ocean, a glint of brass caught her eye in the wet sand. The sea, which had taken Thomas so long ago, finally offered a response. Washed ashore, resting perfectly at the hem of the ancient shawl, was a small, circular sailor's locket. It was tarnished and dull, clearly having endured decades underwater. Mir opened it with trembling fingers. Inside, there was no portrait, only the simple, elegant etching of a single name. The promise that had been kept by the sea itself, Aroha. The tide, having finally done its work, brought the message home.